All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of Q&A here on the OnoCoffee channel. Every Monday through Friday, most Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern. How you all doing? Welcome back to the show. If you have questions about coffee, let me know in the comments down over here, or if you're watching the replay down below, we'll get to them. Or ideas for future videos. So what's going on? How was your weekend? My weekend was good. How's it going? Kent, how are you, man? Good to see you. How's it going? Today, we're talking about espresso. How to make espresso a little bit easier for you to make at home. So I guess let's get into it. Brian, good morning to you, man. How are you doing today? So this is our espresso machine. If you've been watching for a while, wrong button. This is our espresso machine. If you've been watching for a while, this is the La Valentina E61 group head, semi-automatic machine. And semi-automatic is something that they term because they have these control panels here, right? This control panel has electronics inside that determine flow rate, right? So you can take any of these four buttons here, regardless of the icons that are on them, right? And you can program to dispense so much water per time that you press. So I can do it this way. Now, if you look here, I know it's a little bit tighter to see. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more on this. But if you look here, right, you can see this top one has a short, single espresso. This one has a double espresso, single, right? This is two short doubles, or two short singles, and then two short doubles. Now, these are representative icons that the manufacturer has made based on what are popular usages of the equipment and what a lot of places will want to have for dispensing. Now, these can be programmed to dispense any amount regardless of the icon. So they really mean nothing. All you have to do is go into them and I think you hold it down. No? I don't know. Actually, I have no idea how to do this anymore. In the 20 years that I've had this machine, I've actually maybe programmed them once when I first started, and I've never used them again. I never use these switches or anything. I never use these pre-programmed buttons. Even on the La Marzocco's we had at the Espresso, right? We would have the dosatron type versions, the ones that have these volumetric dosing. We never use them, right? On the La Marzocco, there's actually a manual override switch, and we would use that, and we would train all of our baristas to use those. They would have an understanding of what these are, and I did have them programmed to do exactly the same thing, so that just in case someone hit it, it would still operate and do its thing. But what I don't like about these is, you're letting something else tell you when to stop your espresso, when really it's all about you. You can easily tell yourself when you need to stop and understand easily when to stop. Now, I know a lot of people today in modern times are using things like ratio recipes, 18 grams in, 36 grams out, and they're using scales to measure when they should stop. But really, I think that's false idols. That and I think there's a reason why you want to do 1836, for example. But to only use the scale as your reference point is following false idols, right? You're going to be led astray from the path towards really great espresso because you're too much into dogma. Don't get into too much of a dogma. That's what we're all about here. We want you to get away from that and feel more comfortable. Now, this particular dosing whatever has this switch here. Now, this is actually the manual switch. So you have to press it and then stop it to stop it. So there is no manual override like a physical toggle switch like on the La Marzocco's. This is the only way to do that. So that's how we use it. And then this switch here, as you can see, is for the hot water. It will dispense the hot water from this nozzle, right? So that's the general workings of it. And yeah, so Maku, good morning. Anton, good to see you. Anton says that once I have the model, I will need no more scale. Nice, nice, nice. Is there scale built in? Is that why? I still haven't looked up the model. My apologies. All right, so this is the base. So the machine itself is very simple overall, right? We've got the group head here, right? Oh gosh, I keep doing the wrong thing. We got the group head here, which is the E61, developed by Faema in and released in 1961. It is a very popular group head because it's heavy brass. It's it's always like this heavy brass that's being heated with the water, and it's always like nice, and temperature stability is very good. And I'm speaking terrible English. But really, this is kind of a basic machine. It's not very high tech. It just has very much mechanical internals, right? Most of it's all mechanical. I don't have PID. I've never put PID in this machine, even though my professional machines all have PID. I never put PID in this machine because, I never really found it to be that important for the home. And here's part of the reason why, right? Part of the reason why I've never been a big fan of PID for this machine is because if I'm using it, I'm going to turn it on, I'm going to breathe the temperature, and then I'm going to make espresso. And then maybe I might leave it running for a day, but maybe I'll make espresso sporadically, or maybe not at all, and then I'll turn it off. And so I never really use it for that long or for that many shots at a time. Where PID really, I think, comes into its own beauty is because, the PID wants to help you get a very precise and even temperature, not curve, but it wants to help you maintain even temperature, right? So the idea is that as the machine heats up, like for example, on this machine, this little green light will turn on when the heater element turns on, right? So when the heater element turns on, this comes on, and then as it heats and then stops, it turns off. Now, what's happening in the machine is that there is a temperature probe that is controlled by a pressure stat, and the pressure stat is measuring pressure, like here right now, it just turned on, right? There it is, click. It's heating the boiler, 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 heating the boiler. And the machine is measuring the temperature, it stops, right? Now, that happens, I click. And so what's happening here, let's say we want to be right here. This is our temperature. Oh, no, let's go over here. This is our temperature, right? This is the temperature we want to maintain. Let's say you decide that you want to maintain a temperature of 201.5. One of our machines at Spro was 201.5. And some of you may be thinking, oh, that's a little bit too hot, right? It's too hot for espresso. Well, it's not too hot for espresso because there's a whole thing about that, because there's the La Marzocco. If you look at the side view, there's the boiler, and then it has the group neck, the group head neck, and then the saturated brew group. And all of this is saturated with water, filled with water that's heated by the element down here. The temperature probe is here, not here. Right. So this is 201.5. And as it's circulating, it's only like 198 here. Right. So there's some cooling effect that's happening. So we would set this one higher because that would make our offset. And then we test that with the SCASE device by measuring the water temperature coming out of the group head so that we can balance it up. But, let's see some thoughts here. Anton says, I use a scale to control my results, but I adjust dose according to volume per coffee and write that down. My Robusta needs 16.5 grams. My other coffee is 19.5. Oh, nice. Coffee Cove, good morning to you as well, man. How are you doing? And Anton says, I do bigger ratio for more acidic, lighter coffees. So more like 1 to 2.5 and 1 to 3. Gotcha. And I bet your machine has good temperature stability with that price. What kind of type was it again? So this is not a dual boiler. This is a single boiler heat exchange machine made by a company called La Valentina. And I believe it's made in Italy. But yeah, so but it's old. It's old. It's 20 years old now. It's not modern. It's not all the new hotness and fancy sexiness that I see in the marketplace today, right? It's just old and stable. That's what it was, stable. So, but the temperature stability, so like I was saying, the temperature stability we want. So when it comes to the PID, the idea of the PID, the fuzzy logic intercontrol, let's say if you're using the Fuji PXR3, it actually will, it'll turn the heater. So it's reading the temperature, turns the heater on, and then it reaches a temperature and it turns off. So what happens with typical setups is that it turns let's say this is the line. It turns the heat on. So if it falls down, it turns the heat on and brings it back up. Heat, stop. And there's this timing, right? It heats, it senses finally, it's above 201.5, let's turn it off. And then it starts to cascade down. And then it goes past 201.5. And then it realizes, okay, we need to turn it back on. Turn it back on. So you got this constant sine wave. If this is the line, you got this constant sine wave that is, porpoising up and down. What the fuzzy logic in the PID does is that it starts to learn the heating curve and measures it and figures out some kind of algorithmic whatever that instead of like tick on, off, on, off, it actually figures out how to surf that temperature essentially, right? So it'll like, let's say, turns it on and then off and then on and then off and then on and off and on and off and on and off. And it actually starts to pulse it so that it maintains a stable temperature by working it. So, and that works great in commercial environments or an environment where you're pulling shots over a day period where you need that stability. But in a home setup, even if you're pulling, let's say you're making 10 shots for for guests that are coming over, I don't really think that there's much advantage for you to spend the extra money for the PID in order to make that happen. Now, of course, if you want to tinker with it and you're like, I'm all about tinkering and like playing with my gear and finding the new technology, certainly that has tremendous value for you. But for most people, I don't think it's necessary because here's the thing: your friends are going to come over, you're going to heat up the machine, and you're going to pull a shot. Now you can readily go to your machine. Like, let's say your machine is too hot. Let's say you turned it on a while ago. It's been sitting here for like an hour or so, and 2 hours, and it's theoretically superheated, right? How do you bring that temperature back down to better control? You just do this, right? We're just going to flush it out and let whatever superheated water that is in your machine, in this particular case, with the heat exchange machine, that's what's going to happen. We let that out, and then we're good to go. We should now be in a great temperature range to brew shots and make very lovely espresso without too much muss and fuss. And yeah, that's kind of why I'm against, I'm against people spending money for PID upgrades to their machine, because most people never really will see the benefit of that, especially if you turn the machine on, you make your shots, and then you turn your machine off. Like, well, you don't really need the PID then, right? You don't need that. In a commercial environment, it helps because we want that temperature stability. But 1 or 2 shots a day or in a session, I don't think that's going to give you the maximum amount for your dollar spend, right? All right, so let's go and have a look here at our espresso again. We're going to make espresso. Do we have enough? I think I need to zoom out a little bit, right? Let's zoom out a little bit more. Okay. So we've got our espresso machine. We've got our portafilter. At least it's a little bit dirty. So we just want to make sure we clean it out. We've already flushed the group head, so we want to make sure that it's nice and clean. And we've got our coffee. Like I normally do, I haven't actually used this coffee grinder or machine or anything since the last time we made espresso. So what I'm going to do is there's some residual coffee left inside this grinder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush it out just to make sure that all the excess coffee that's in here is brushed down, but also there should be some ground coffee left here in this collar. Oh, it's kind of hard to see, isn't it? there's a collar here, right? You can kind of see it here. There's a collar that has the two burrs, and it's going to capture that. Well, once you stop the grinder, it's going to capture some of the grounds that are in there. Like coffee is just always in the pathway. So what we're going to do is we're going to grind a little bit just to flush out whatever's in here and get to fresher coffee or fresher ground coffee. I don't know if I ever really have fresh coffee. All right, so we got that. Now we're going to purge our hopper here. Now, I know many of you are using like newer modern doser-less grinders rather than these doser grinders. I still like these doser grinders. I think the quality of the grinder is still very, very good, very solid. I mean, they're battle tanks. Now, this is over 20 years old as well. So they're just battle tanks. Works really well. Really great grind quality. These are using flat 83 millimeter burrs. And here's the interesting thing. Like when I got in the business, the flat burrs were good, but they were starting to become passé, right? Like people wanted to go to conical. Everyone conical. And we spent many years obsessing about conical burrs. Now we're back. It seems that especially, at least in I think in most of the marketplace, we seem to be back to flat burrs again. So we're back to flat. So I don't necessarily think that conical or flat are necessarily better. Evidently, conical is supposed to be more consistent, but the point is that if you can get larger burrs, like 83 millimeter, or the larger the burr you can afford, it should give you better results, right? Cooling, it's a bigger surface of metal, thicker surface of metal, so the heat will be the heat generation will not be as heavy with the larger metal than it will be with the smaller. So if you have 54 millimeter burrs, you're going to have greater heat generation, which could potentially degrade your coffee. It's all relative. Like I don't know if that ever really happens like in a home environment. Commercial environment, perhaps, right? Like if you're pounding on this grinder for like hours on end, constantly grinding hundreds of shots a day, like that's a factor to consider. But for the home user, like this little, I don't know what size burr, maybe this is what, you guys will know about this, 54 millimeter, 65 or whatever it is. I never will worry. I never have to worry about this heat issues with this grinder because I'll never grind enough coffee in any session to like worry about it. Like, yeah, there'll be some heat generated. Like if I decide I want to grind a pound of coffee through it, maybe there'll be some heat generation. I'm sure there will be, but like, is that a critical factor that I need to worry about? Like, it's going to degrade my coffee. No, I don't think so. 64. Okay, 64. Thank you. All right, so let us make some coffee now. So let's go back to our machine. So like I said, we've got everything set up now, and we're going to let's just do this as an exercise to see how it works, right? So we're going to take the portafilter. We're going to put this on the scale. This is the Fellow Tally Pro Studio Edition with the piano finish, which is very nice. I'm actually enjoying it more. Okay, let's put that here. Well, we're going to go to our weight. 580.6 grams. Tear that sucker out. And now we're going to add coffee to it to see how much coffee we're going to add, right? So let's go to the coffee. So I'm going to let it grind a little bit. Okay, goodness, I'm making a mess already. This is why I don't really like to make espresso at home because it's always a messy endeavor. Okay, so here we are. We've got a little bit of a mounding right? So I got the mounding here. And every time you dose, the mound is going to be a little bit different, right? So it's higher here. I guess this is probably too much coffee, but we're going to see it's a little bit lower here. So I like to distribute. So I'm just going to push it around a little bit and just make sure that all of the coffee is distributed evenly across the coffee bed. Now, you can see here there's a bit of a mound, and I think this is too much. So I'm going to swipe off a little bit like that. And then now we're going to go to our tamping. So I've swept off a little bit. Now we're going to take our tamper. This is the Reg Barber tamper, and we're going to just drop that on top and just get a feel for it. I'm getting a feel for it to make sure that we're getting level all the way around, right? I'm using both fingers, right? Opposing fingers, and touching both the rim here as well as the top of the basket. Oh, it's a little bit off. You can see that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to feel around there, and I'm just going to manipulate it. So if I feel that, like in this case, it was a little bit higher here, right? Oops, a little bit higher here. I'm just going to push it down until I get an even feeling all the way around. That's good. Then we're going to tamp, and with a little bit of a twist to polish at the end. And that's pretty clean, right? So wipe off all this. Now let's go back to the scale and see. We had, so 22.3 grams, so a little bit heavy. I like to do about 21 grams, but 22.3, we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna roll with it because you know what? We've already put it in there, we've already temped it. Let's just continue. And we wanted to look here, see how the puck looks, nice and clean, nice and flat, nice and even. Right? You want to make it nice and even. And then let's go back to our espresso machine, and we're going to flush. We want to flush and make sure that any kind of water that's in the line will not be. So there's two reasons of flushing, right? If there's water in the line, it may cool, right? Depending on the setup of your machine. Every machine's gonna be a little bit different. You have to kind of tailor this to your machine. In this particular case, we want to definitely flush because this is a heat exchange machine. And what that means is that the water line, in order to make the water temperature for this, the group head, at the right temperature, it takes the cold water from the reservoir and passes it through the steam boiler there's only one boiler, so there's a steam boiler, so it passes through the boiler, which is heated to about 240 degrees. Now that's way too hot for brewing our coffee, so it passes through. And as long as it's flowing through, the water is calculated. The way they design is that the tubing is long enough through the boiler so that as long as it's flowing through, it should heat it to the right temperature. So when it stops, that water that's in the tube that's inside the boiler is above boiling, and it's way too hot. So we want to make sure that we flush through to make sure. You might have heard a little bit of spitting there. We want to get through that. That is the water. And what that spitting is basically once this pressurized water comes out and reaches atmospheric pressure, it boils because it immediately drops from, let's say, 240, wherever it is. It immediately drops because of atmospheric pressure to 212 to boiling, boom. And then it sputters. So we need to get past that to fresh water so that we have more even temperature. So now we flush that out one more time just to make sure. Lock and load with our portafilter. Hit the button. I think one of the things you want to do is hit the button right away. Hit the button right away. And now we're waiting, which might be a little bit tight. Oh, we get a little bit of leaking. And a little bit of fast flow. We may have, this is our test shot, so we need to probably grind through a little more coffee. I think the coffee's probably a little bit, we probably had a little bit of the older coffee residue left. Let's come back over here. Whoops. And as you can see, the crema is looking a bit on the blondie side. It's looking a bit light. I thought the flow was a bit fast. But what we're doing here, we're testing the coffee. We want to pull a test shot to see where we are, what kind of changes we might need to make, what issues do we need to consider to address when we're making our espresso. And then now we have to taste. Oh, man. Oh, definitely not what we're looking for. A bit astringent, a bit like bright, not so pleasant. So, yeah, that is a no. let us go back and reset, and then we will try to make a better espresso. Then I think several factors, like I said, I think there are several factors at play here. The coffee may still have been older coffee that was still haven't totally flushed out of the burrs, right? So we got a little bit of fast performance on the flow. Yeah, and so that's probably a major contributor to the flavors I'm tasting here. Not very pleasant. Now that it is on the palate as far as like finish, the aftertaste, I'm starting to get a little bit of that cocoa powder from the Guatemala coffee that we're using, this Huehue Tenango that we're using. That I really, a quality of this Guatemala that I really like, but only now is that coming through on the finish. The initial part is just not pleasant, so we need to go and make more. Okay, so let's go back here and see what we got. Let's look at our puck. We always want to look at, so here's something. I always want to look at the puck to see what the puck story has to tell us. Let's go here. And as you can see, it's fairly clean. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for basically this nice clean sheen, not sheen, but just this nice clean surface, right? It looks clean, it looks smooth, it looks dry. You can see this ring here. This ring is actually the indentation from, what is this called? The dispersion screen that's inside the group head. To me, this is all very positive signs. We want to see this, right? This is a good thing. We also want to check the compaction, right? Okay, that's good. Now here's the thing though. These are, while I'm telling you about all these things that we're looking at, the big difference between someone like myself who's doing this and trying these things, and between you at home, is that you can do all this. It certainly will help you in your exploration of coffee. But the ultimate test really is this. You have the ability to do this where I wouldn't, right? Like in a commercial environment, I can pull a shot and I can serve it to you. You would be unhappy if before I served you this shot, if I took a sip to make sure it tasted all right. Like, you would not like that, right? Like, I would be like, what are you doing, dude? That's crazy. So these are the things these are kind of the tools that we use professionally to gauge whether or not the shot is good. Like, we're looking for visual cues as the espresso is falling out of the spouts, right? How does it come out? How is the flow? What happens? When does it waver? All these things. And then so that kind of tells us what to do, when to do. But then what we're looking for later is how successful we'll be at this. And things like this are indicators for us to know, or to give an idea of whether or not the shot was successful, right? Because we can only gauge success. We can't really tell success, right? So what we also look at is how well does it come out? Like, how much of a nice cookie is the puck? And then also, what I'm also looking for here, and I may not necessarily look at the cookie very much, but I will definitely, after I knock the puck out, I'm looking at the basket. Are there residual oils in the basket? And residual oils kind of tell me if we stop the shot at the right moment. If there's no oils, like you see here, there's no oils, we have extracted the best that we could out of this coffee. Now, does it mean that it's the best coffee? No, this coffee could definitely use improvement, but we got the best that we could out of it, the most we could possibly get out of it. So that's really an important factor for me, right? So, but what does it mean? Like, you have residual oils, and here's the thing, residual oils in your portafilter basket just tells you that it was either under extracted or over extracted, that you were kind of somewhere outside of the ideal space for that espresso. Whether it truly was under or over is something that you have to understand based on everything that's happened there, right? So if it ran long, then over extracted. If it ran short, under extracted, right? So Anton says that with bottom paper filter, it always knocks out Nice, nice. Really makes cleanup easier. I mean, like most of the time, don't get me wrong, I'm not normally knocking it onto my counters here. Normally, I'm just knocking into a knockbox and or into some kind of waste bin. Like typically, I don't normally do it on the counter. Otherwise, I have to like clean it more, right? So. But I hear you. Paper filter is a good thing. All right, let's go back. We're going to rinse out the portafilter before we start our next one. Make sure you get the spouts and even the wings. I just like to rinse it out. And then I like to let it hang for a moment so that any water that's in the portafilter will flow out. Now, here's the thing. Even though I may go very fast with this, right? Like even though I may do really fast, there's always going to be some water that is flowed through these. As you can see here, it's still dripping. It has flowed through these perforations, and I like to. You just want to leave it there just to let it drip, because otherwise you've got mess on your counter, and then you have to wipe. And then I really want to minimize the wiping, because especially in a professional environment, the more steps you take to make your espresso, the longer it takes, so the less efficient you are. And if you're trying to service a number of guests at a time, you need to be as efficient as possible, right? So, okay, we've got our portafilter now. Let's wipe it back out, dry it all nice and clean. I'm going to do this one more time. Let's go back and get more coffee. This time I had less, right? And there was a little bit more gap here. So I'm sweeping around this way to fill in. Each time that you make an espresso, the way that I will address the distribution is going to be different, because every time it falls in, it's going to be different. It's never really the same. So it's always a dynamic process. Okay, good, nice and clean here. Let's go see how much weight we were causing, how much coffee. And also supposedly helps with color. Oh, wow, that is what we need. 23.4, so we got more coffee in this time by like, I don't know what, nine, almost a full gram more. Okay, so let's go back and see. Also, one thing I kind of want to mention is that when you watch people make espresso, they're always like really. Well, there's two sides. Oh, so a little bit faster there. Let's stop right there. We may need to go to a grind change at this point. So a little bit improved as far as the coloration. Like it's a little bit more reddish brown, a little bit more, not tremendously more than this one was. But let's see how it tastes. Cleaner. Strangely enough, there's more of like a citrusy aspect to it now on the outset. I think I would like to do another shot. But now so initially with the heat, kind of like this citrusy, but not very long lasting, like really a quick termination of that. And then now it's on the finish, it's morphing into, we're going back to the, what do you call it? The cocoa powder. Oh, that cocoa powder is really pronounced this time. When I first started using this coffee, and I was like, this cocoa powder is I thought the cocoa powder was kind of weird. But the more I've been drinking it, the more I've really become very much fond of it. So yeah, if you have questions about the espresso, let me know as we go through this. One thing that I wanted to mention is that we see what I see a lot in people is that either what I'm concerned about is heat, right? So, for example, let's go here to the machine. When we're talking, this is all hot, right? Everything's hot. The problem with heat is that the coffee, when dry and clean and freshly ground, it only has a small window of time to emanate or to have its aromatics, right? So we just freshly ground it, and the aromatics are escaping, and the oils are starting to be dissipated because we've taken one whole bean where everything's self-contained, and now we've crushed it into maybe, I don't know, let's say 2,000 to 3,000 particles, right? So we've exponentially exposed it to the oxygen, air, and all the aromatics that are inside are escaping rapidly, and any of the oils will now be dissipating rapidly. And this is why we grind fresh, right? So you go through all of this trouble to grind fresh. And what do I see a lot of people do? I see a lot of people take their coffee, they grind it, they put it in their portafilter, and they put it in their machine, and they're just kind of dilly-dallying. They're just doing whatever, right? Now they're going to talk, and they're going to go grab their cups, or they're going to do something. What we train our baristas at Spro to do, and this is something that I'm very hardcore on, is like, you can do whatever you want with the portafilter, right? So for example, if I fill this, if I want to put this if I want to do that, all right, fine. That's okay. I mean, not okay, but it's acceptable, right? If I want to take it over here and I want to put it down, okay, that's okay. Because even though the portafilter is kind of warm and it's kind of contributing to that evaporation, it's not as rapid as though if I encased it inside the heat of the portafilter, or of the heat of the group head, and now it's all just sitting there. But the one thing I don't understand is, like, people will they'll lock it in and they'll just leave it. What I always train our baristas to do is, the moment you lock it, the moment you put the portafilter into the group head and lock it, the only thing that happens after that, you don't even grab a cup. You just go, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put it in and you're going to hit the brew button. That's it. There's no other motion in between those two. From this, the only thing left is this, right? And I get it, a lot of people are like, they get all like discombobulated, and you see them, I've seen them, like, they'll fumble a little bit, like they press the button and oh my gosh, they're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get where's the cup? I gotta put it under here. Like sometimes, like the last shot, I started out early, but most of the time, once I lock it in and press the button, I've got almost 5 seconds to actually get the cup and put it under the spout. Like, you don't have to worry about it. Like, I'll almost never, so you'll see some people, they'll put the cup beforehand. I almost never do that because there's so much time, especially if you're in control, meaning that you're not panicking. Don't panic, right? There's just espresso, no need to panic. You just take the coffee, you just take the cup, and then you just drop it underneath. Very, very easy. Very, very, it can be very, very relaxed. Like, you don't have to be all like concerned. And I know some people get very concerned. They're like, oh my gosh, I gotta move it. Like, you have time. Like, you have time to like chill and like relax for a moment before you even have to grab the cup. So let's go back, and Naomi says, I missed the beginning. We're always here at 10 a.m. So Anton says, Coffee Maker also said that even 5 seconds too long portafilter in the group head without pulling the shot can change. Oh, absolutely. We have been teaching that for many, many years, 20 years now. It's really, I think it's really an important aspect of espresso preparation, especially since, like, I know a lot of the home enthusiasts, sometimes I watch some of the videos, I'm like, you go through so much trouble to prepare your coffee. Like, you're buying these expensive coffees, right? These really pretty coffees, and you're like doing all this work, and you've got all these tools, and you're doing the raking and the distribution, and you're tamping, and you're weighing the retention and blah blah and all this stuff. And then I see them put the portafilter in and then lock it and then do something else. Like, what are you doing, man? You're like killing your shot. Like you spend all of this effort, expended all this effort and money to get to this point, to the point of glory. And you're diminishing the glory by not brewing right away. So brew right away. Like that's like the one thing that I have that I always like I will sit there in the cafes, right? I'd be like, hey, and I will like watch the barista, and I will, and if they're doing that wrong, I will go back. I won't say that across the room because I don't want to embarrass my own staff, right? But I'll go up to them a little bit and be like, remember to lock and load and brew right away, right? And that's something we train. And during our training, we're teaching them, you lock, once you lock it, you hit the button. That's it. Nothing else. And if you're not ready to do that, like for example, let's say you're making a latte, and this is true whether they're making espresso or lattes or whatever drink they're making, even ice flavored lattes, it's always the same. Always brew the moment you lock, brew. Right? And I tell them, if you're not ready, so let's say for whatever reason, you've got your portafilter all loaded, put it down. Just put it like that, right there. Don't do anything with it. Just put it down and then prepare everything else. I mean, you should have everything else prepared before you go to the espresso grinder. But let's say something happens and you have to like, for example, let's say you're making a ice latte, right? Ice latte. Let's say you're making an iced vanilla latte. You've got everything ready. You're ready to go, and then somehow you accidentally knock into the cup, right, that you're going to pull the espresso in. Well, now you got to reset that. So put that down, and then go fix it, and then come back to this. Don't put this inside the machine and wait and let it die. You're just killing it. You're killing it. It's like so. And then when I see other people doing, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, it gives me like heart palpitations. I'm all like, can I come over there and like help you with that? All right, let's knock that out. So again, we look at our puck thing here, nice and clean. So I'm stopping it at the right point. So that's a nice thing. It's not the only nice thing. Now he says, my niche stopped working, so I got distracted trying to figure, oh no, what happened? I wonder, could there be some kind of thermal switch in the niche that might be switched? And then Naomi says, I think people do that because they don't know. I mean, I understand that. And that's why part of the reason we do these videos is to like let people and hopefully help people to understand that better. But also what I don't understand is I don't think a lot of the YouTubers, and I'll be honest, I don't really watch coffee YouTube. My apologies, but I don't think that a lot of coffee YouTubers even talk about this, right? Like, no, I don't. In the little bit that I've seen, I don't think I've ever seen anyone talks about like, put it in and then brew. Like that's I'm so hardcore about that. Like, we really get on our new trainees. Well, like, you need to brew right away. Like, and like we try to drive the fear of God into them about that. Like, you know, Krampus will come for you if you don't do that. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's why we're here. We're here to share. Coffee Cove says, I learned something new with that. Oh, okay. Excellent. Also checking oil on the portafilter. Yeah, the oil on the portafilter. Some of these things, like the oil on the portafilter, like checking these are kind of like, I would consider them to be advanced techniques for the barista, right? Even professional baristas will have to get to a certain level before they're actually exposed to that. And not too many, I don't even know if too many professionals talk about this, even amongst ourselves, right? But these are things, and these things are really what's important. They're super tremendous tools for the professional because we can't taste your drink, right? You can't, like I said, you can't taste the drink. So we have to find ways to understand what we've served without serving it. Like you'll see these cocktail guys, right? And they'll have, you know, whatever cocktail, and they'll take the cocktail straw and they'll do that sample thing, which I really don't like. Like, I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, are you not professional enough to know how to do it? Or like, you know, and that seems to be acceptable. In the cooking world, like you may taste some of the food as you're preparing, but you're in the kitchen, nobody sees you, not a big deal, right? But and you're not tasting the actual food off the person's plate. Whereas in this case, if I'm serving you an espresso or a latte or a cappuccino, like I think even if I took like a straw, right? Even if I served you a drink and I took a straw, and I think that would be kind of weird. Like I think that's weird. Like I don't personally like that from a hospitality standpoint. But in your case at home, like you really have the ability to taste the drink. So you have the ultimate ability to understand what you're making, because not only can you taste it and see, okay, I like it, I don't like it, this is good, this is not good, but you can also now, if with these ideas, if you can also, correlate whatever you visually see with, like, let's say the puck or the way the flow rate is happening, these are all things that can help to come together to help you troubleshoot your espresso better. Have you seen the Weber Workshops version of the portafilter called the Unifilter? I have not seen that, Dev. I will have to go look for that. The Unifilter price, Anton says, is ridiculous. Unifilter. Okay, let's look at this now that we have the expensive. Did you see that? That is. See, I'm in my phone catches the coins in my pocket, and I happen to pop it out. And the penny floated right into the. Not good. Sometimes my interest in having taste experiences does not do me favors. All right, let's see here. Unit filter. Right now I'm thinking about like drum sanding attachments for my drill press so that I can like sand these four. It's kind of silly. It's kind of silly. Unifilter, portafilter. This is what we're talking about here. Weber Workshops. The first unibody portafilter, $420 US. Wow. Our latest timepiece disguised as a full portafilter. A timepiece. Wow. Does it actually have the time? We recreated the portafilter out of a single piece of stainless steel for an optimal extraction geometry. No more removable basket, unprecedented extraction geometry, improved thermal stability, it's so bright, isn't it? It's not showing up the, and I don't know how to change anyway, I'm not going to change. Giant leap for espresso. Use it, rinse it, wipe it, and no other routine and maintenance for better. Okay, so it's one piece stainless. Oh, it's a one piece. So really thin here. The body, one piece stainless. It's a one piece stainless naked portafilter. And what did they say it does? It does optimal extraction geometry. Optimal, what? Okay. Well, optimal extraction geometry. What in the? Like, there's a lot of superlatives in the world of coffee. Oh, don't I have one of these somewhere here? I have when I was reading that originally, before I looked at the photographs, I was thinking, oh, maybe there's something new and interesting to what they're saying. Because, like maybe there's a way to shape the bottom of the portafilter, and mill it so that the spout is all integrated together. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting and maybe kind of cool, right? Like maybe there could be some kind of new revolutionary thing going on here. How is it I've got portafilters galore? Like I have 4 portafilters here. I've got like 3 portafilters in the closet. And for whatever reason, I don't have or don't know where my 1 or 2 naked portafilters are. Okay, so you guys are all, I know all of you guys are very well informed about coffee making in general. And I thought I had one here at the station. I'm now perplexed. perplexed by the lack of equipment that I have here, even though I thought I set it up. Anyway, all right, I guess we're not gonna dwell on it. But basically, okay, let me grab one of these. Okay, so Anton says better investment probably. Dev says, but I think it's worth it. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm kind of with you, Dev, on the idea that, if there's some kind of advancement, it could be worth it. But let's have a look at what they have on this webpage, right? They've talked a lot of great superlatives, and it's very attractive. I mean, it looks like a portafilter, like it's attractive enough, right? It looks like this part here from the handle, like this, which is this part here. Looks this part. It looks like it's super thin, like super, like incredibly thin. Like, wow, that's kind of cool, right? That's a very nice detail. And then it connects to the body of the portafilter. And I'm thinking, okay, so here's my thing. When I first said when I was reading the superlatives, I was like, oh, maybe they found a way to mill it and create some kind of, like here, if we take this off. Sorry, it's dirty. I know. I don't use this one, but there's a kind of a conical shape here, right? Perhaps there's some kind of geometry they've figured out that would integrate with the spout that would, maybe do something to give better exposure to the air and the environment or whatever to improve the flavor of your extraction, right? But I'm looking at this, and sure, there's a nice basket. Okay, there's a nice basket. There's probably some kind of basket technology. But this, is that the bottom or is that the top? I can't tell if that's the bottom. Maybe that's the bottom. But this shows me that what they've done is, so when I first got into business, right, there was this thing that came out called the naked portafilter. And basically what I did is, guys were all like talking, well, you should cut the bottom off of your portafilter and like you'll get great espresso. Or at the very least, what you'll get is that you'll be able to see how you screwed up your distribution and your tamping of your coffee. Because, when the basket is fully exposed like this, right, you can, if there's like channeling, you'll see it like shower sprays, right? Like, shh, and like, it would now make your station dirty and you'd be like, oh God, this is terrible. And then you realize that I need to improve my technique. And so but what we would do is we would take our portafilter, like this is what I took this portafilter, like exactly this model of La Marzocco portafilter. This was like, at the time in like 2003, this was like the newest generation of portafilter. Molded brass, cast brass, body, screwed on here, and then this stem that has a rod shoved into a steel rod that has this encased in. But what we did, man, some people would go to a mill, like a vertical mill or something, and they'd mill off really nicely the bottom here. I went to Home Depot, I got a hole saw, and I hole sawed this sucker. And it's brass, so it's not too difficult to I use this like tooth wood saw thing, and I just screwed this down to a piece of plywood, and I just, I took the spout off, and then and it was all crude and rudimentary and ugly. And then I took a file and I filed it down. It was to smoothen out, but it was still kind of crude and ugly, right? Now, here's the thing. Some people would mill it off, and some people would mill it off like here, right? They'd mill it off here. What I did is that I stayed inside the diameter of the overall walls, right? So then I could then put it down and tamp. The people that actually cut it so that the basket actually was proud of the base. Now they couldn't tamp like that. They actually, every time they tamped, it would pop up. Their basket kind of sucked. I was like, you guys are suckers. Anyway, Dev says the unifilter's added thickness, 1.2 millimeters, so 1.2 millimeters on the exterior wall, provides rigidity to the puck during extraction. Rigidity to the puck? Wait, are we talking about, is it thicker on the basket or is it thicker on the portafilter by 1.2 millimeters? Anton says that I got one nice spray today, but the shot tasted, yeah, and that's the thing. Taste is the ultimate factor. Like, we get all like wrestled because, we're like looking at the sprays. But again, we're getting wrestled because this is all we can do, right? We can't really, again, it goes back to our inability to taste the drinks we're serving, to know whether or not. And that is one of the greatest advantages the home barista has over the professional, is that you get to taste the drinks you make, right? Dev says by reducing the bottom face flex and common issues like puck cracking and channeling, this results in more stable and precise extraction. Okay, I guess we're talking about the basket, right? So the basket is thicker by 1.2 millimeters, which, okay, that's a good thing, right? I wonder what the extrusion size or what the thickness size of this. I'm going to have to go to a friend of mine. A friend of mine does process machinery for metalworking. He sells machinery to all the companies that make all kinds of defense, aerospace. Even he sells to Wilbur Curtis, and then he makes these. And they have this one machine that's made by a company called Euromac, based in Italy, and it's a turret stamping machine. So basically, it's a turret punch machine. And so they understand how. So I'm going to have to ask him I'll bring this over and have it measured, and so that he can tell me what's the size of this thickness, and because these are all stamped, right? These are all pressed, stamped from a flat sheet of metal. And I'm really amazed when they show me the machinery, how they can do all this. So 1.2 millimeters thicker than, let's say, this. And bottom face flex. Now, so the bottom face flex, I think the bottom here will sometimes, under the 135 pounds of pressure, you can kind of see it flex a little bit, right? Sometimes, depending on the manufacturer. Common issues like puck cracking and channeling. Now, puck cracking, I don't know what that is, honestly, Dev. I don't know what puck cracking is. What? I'm thinking in the years that I've been doing this with tens of thousands of shots. Channeling, absolutely. Muck-ups, no doubt. But cracks in a puck, I don't even know what that is, honestly. I don't even know what kind of thing that is. This results in more stable and precise and predictable extraction process. Okay. Braxton says, what's going on, Braxton? Unifilter looks cool, but can't afford the Weber tax. I buy Festool for tools, so I'm kind of just because it's expensive doesn't mean that it's ridiculous, right? So, Coffee Cove, I bought a naked portafilter and a portafilter with a spout. And I prefer the spout because the naked sometimes sprays too much, and I hate that with a passion. I saw one of James's videos demonstrating pulling a shot with a spout. So here's the thing, I don't disagree with you, right? I don't disagree with you. Because, right. So you get you cut this off, you got your naked, and now you can buy the naked portafilters already cut and really nicely done. They've got a nice chamfered finish, and they're all chrome plated or the whatever. And I hear you on that because you're making shots and it's spraying everywhere. You're like, good Lord, man! My drip tray is dirty. My counter is dirty. My shirt is dirty. Everything's dirty, right? I'm like, oh, this sucks. The reality is, though, the reason that, say, I hated it was because it showed every it exploited every weakness in my technique. Like it just would show me with like reckless abandon, like, oh, you suck at this. Like you just don't know what you're doing. Like you're horrible. Like you just like, you totally mucked up that. Like you didn't distribute enough here. And so it's coming out and you're like, and then, you're worried that, oh, maybe there's going to be some kind of, oh, hold on, my mom is calling. Hello. Yes.
Where are you?
I'm working. I'm on the live stream. What's up? All right. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. All right. Mom calls and I should answer, right? Don't put your moms off. Okay. So while I totally agree with you that the spouts are better, because like the spouts, I put this in here, right? And man, you know what? I don't have to worry. If I don't distribute, I don't have to worry. Like it's just gonna come out, and I'm gonna be like, I'm a professional, I'm a pro, like I'm totally like the master, right? But you do that, and like everyone like, oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But you do this. Oh, charlatan. So, yeah, but I would suggest, use your naked more and like use it as a tool to help you understand how you might improve your technique. Because you'll reach a point if you really do it enough and you pay attention to it and really work on your technique. Because if you see that it's like you can see consistency in happening, right? Like let's say you put it in the portafilter and it's always coming out here. Well, you know that you're a bit deficient in that area of your distribution. So work on that. And eventually you start to get these shots and there's no more spraying and it all comes together. You're just like, and it's just like in the videos you've seen, they're all like smooth and all like, you're just like, oh God. And then you can show your friends and be like, yeah, I'm a God. I'm an espresso God. Yeah. Bow down. Right. So that's my advice. But so let's go back to this idea of, and he explained how to read the stream coming out. Oh, you mean, so James talked about the stream coming out of here. I mean, here's the thing though, that streaming, that reading of the stream is also true of this. Like it'll come together. Well, when your technique is good, it'll come together into a single stream and you still read it the same way. This is just much more difficult to get right because really has to be right, where this brings it together, right? It forces it all together into here, right? So this is infinitely easier and less damaging to the ego than this. Like this is just like the harsh reality that yours is not big enough. It's like, what am I gonna do? Anton says, I prefer my naked because the paper filter mostly prevents sprays and the spouts are somehow not shaped well, so they sometimes overshoot the go. So when you say the paper, are you putting, so when you fill this portafilter, is the paper at the bottom of the basket or is the paper on top of the puck? I'm not familiar with using paper. Plus, I'm a cheap guy. Like I don't want to use more paper than necessary. Like, and then I got to sit there and either put the AeroPress filters, which now I can't get in 350 count packs when I buy the AeroPress. So I don't have it only comes at 25. So I don't have the excess that I used to. Or if I have to take the paper filters and then cut them and I got to cut them in a circle now, like I got to do that. I'm lazy. I'm lazy overall. Right? Channeling. Oh, Anton says channeling is one thing, but you would first have to prove to me puck cracking is. I haven't seen. Sorry, Dev. I haven't seen the puck cracking. That sounds like crazy marketing language. It kind of reminds me of like reading this. Reminded me of like reading about that AeroPress metal stuff that they had, that article they had in Perfect Daily Grind that we're talking about like last week or a week before, where they were like, it's going to bring a new transcendence to coffee brewing. I'm like, dude, it's an AeroPress that's made of glass and metal. How is that going to revolutionize brewing in a way that we haven't seen? Okay, God, anyway. Anton says, by the way, my father said Festool is overrated. Yeah, because he probably uses Mafel. And even Festool guys are like jealous of Mafel. Like, okay. Although you have the P1cc, so Festool has a jigsaw, right? Festool's jigsaw is maybe $400 if you bought it brand new. Here in America, the P1cc jigsaw from Mattel is like $900. I was like, oh my God. But all the guys that I know that use Festool, they're all like, the P1cc Mattel is the best jigsaw on the market. And I was like, oh, maybe one day I should buy that. But then there was a dealer up in Vancouver that was like, yeah, we got a sale on the Mattel, and it's going to be Canadian, like $450. I was like, $450? What? Can I buy that from you? I'm in America. He's like, no, we can't sell across the board. I was like, good Lord, I need to like call some of my friends in Canada and have them buy me one, and then I'll pay them back. I should call my friend right now about that. Anyway, but yeah, I hear you. That's what the Ryobi guys say too. Like, oh, Festool's overrated. Like, come on now. Braxton says, yes, Home Depot hole saw, jack saw, or grinder have been my method. Yeah, I think it's very simple, very simple. Anton says, one hilarious comment I saw, I always wondered why my shots don't look as good as in the videos. Then I realized the videos are slowed down. I mean, in some cases, I guess they are, right? Coffee Cove says, yes, can learn to read how the shot is doing, wish I knew what visual it was. No worries. Perfect Daily Grind really seems to perfectly grind your gears. No, actually, I like a lot of Perfect Daily Grind. Well, do I like? I do make some snide comments, I think, on their Instagram posts, because I'm just kind of a curmudgeon when it comes to industry. I'm just. But anyway, so let's go back to this. So we've got this. So you cut this off, and you got the basket exposed. Based on what I'm seeing here, and only based on what I'm seeing here, that's all this is. It's a nicely, so they talk about this being a one-piece stainless steel machined. This is one-piece stainless steel. Now, I don't know if this is actually machined or molded. I don't even know you can mold. I don't even know if you can mold stainless. But this is like one of the newer generation of La Marzocco portafilters, and I believe. Well, no, it looks like it's cast. It's probably cast. I mean, it doesn't look machined. I was just presuming it was machined because they said it was stainless. Maybe the interior is machined a little bit, but it doesn't look terribly. But here's the thing. So, like, if you cut this part off here, so that the basket is fully exposed, what is there about the portafilter that's going to affect the actual making of the coffee, other than the basket itself? Like, I don't know. I don't understand, and I'll be honest, I'm basing this on my personal, like, experiences and like, prejudices, but I don't know, when you expose the basket completely, what in the world the portafilter is going to do, and why would you charge, or forget the price, but just what is it going to do, and how is this naked portafilter going to improve your experience? This is the part that I'm questioning, right? Like, perhaps the basket has technology, right? And that's certainly true. Like, we went from, we went from this, right? For example, here's a good example. These are both dirty portafilters, but we went from this kind of older school portafilter to, I think this is like more VST style. And you can kind of see that the perforations are a little bit different. The patterning is different. Or maybe this is the VST, this is not, I don't remember anymore. Like, it probably says somewhere on here, oh, this is probably the VST. Anyway, but you can see there's differences in the way that it's perforated, the perforation styles, perhaps the hole sizes, and the way that it comes to the edges of the basket rim. These are all things that I think could, and even the shapes, right? Like, if you look at this is more squared and this is rounded. I mean, these are all things that can impact the performance of your espresso. But a portafilter that has no bottom, like, yeah, you want to buy it because it's stylish, right? Like, this is some stylish portafilter, like that style, right? There's a lot of style to that, right? I think, right? Like they're stylish to that. Like the one that I think is cool, like the one that comes with so there's the Meticulous, right? The Meticulous, which will probably never get released because of that Duval espresso company. But Meticulous, you buy the Meticulous, and then there's this upgrade. We have to pay extra for this portafilter, which they should just include it to begin with. But that portafilter that you can upgrade to, I think is just sexy looking. Like I look at that, I'm like, oh, that's sexy. I want that in white, right? But will that really do anything for your espresso? No, I don't. I mean, I can't imagine that it would, because it's cut off here. So I would be interested in buying it because I think it's sexy looking. And I'm like, I think I would feel sexier if I had this. I would be sexier if I had this. Like girls would want me more because I had this portafilter, because I had this strong tool in my hand, right? That's why I would get it, not for any other, like, I don't, so not to say that it's not going to help you, but Dev says puck cracking can happen, especially if you tap too hard. I don't know. I've never seen that. And and that's something else that we at Spro we would train our baristas, especially in the earlier days. I think later days, I don't know if we did this as hardcore. We would train everyone to temp to the same pressure, 20 pounds of pressure, right? So we would take a bathroom scale, and basically we would take a bathroom scale. We would take a scale, not this one, but take a bathroom scale. And now the ergonomics here are going to be wrong because this particular bar top is 42 inches high, which is way too high for work. But what you would do is you would take this, and we would just practice. And basically, they would just tamp down with the right technique until the scale read 20 pounds and then stop. Just tamp, stop, and they would practice that repeatedly, literally hundreds of times, because we wanted to build that muscle memory. But why was that important? The 20 pounds per se wasn't necessarily important. We wanted to have some good compaction to keep, but more importantly, we wanted to have even compaction across our staff. It could be 10 pounds, it could be 30, it could be 5, whatever it is, whatever you want to do. The important thing that it's consistent, so that as baristas would rotate in and out off the machine in the different positions, the tamping style would be the same, so the consistency would be maintained, so that they wouldn't have to hunt and perhaps have to hunt and change things like the grind setting over and over again. Because every time they have to change a grind setting, it slows them down, makes them less efficient, makes the work a little bit harder. So I don't know how, honestly, I don't know how over pressurizing your tamp will result in cracking, since you're compacting the coffee even more. So I don't know how that happens. I mean, I'd love to see an example of it. Like, I'd be very curious to see that. I'm very open to that. Don't get me wrong. Anton says, as far as I know, the main selling point of Unifilter is that there is no detachable basket. Oh, it's all built in. Okay. It's a high flow basket that goes all the way down without angles. Oh, so fully straight. See, these are the things that, instead of telling us all of these superlatives, tell us why exactly, like what's so different. Like I can't tell from these photographs really how that's super different. So this is actually all integrated together. So my question then, is there a lip? Because it looks like it's flat. So if I'm tamping on it, is the basket now sitting on the countertop? Because my concern would be, and maybe this is not really a concern depending on how your environment is, but, might there be some kind of residual grounds or something? Because in a professional environment, we try to wipe, but there's not always going to be perfectly clean. Right. So if I tamp on this, will there be particulates stuck here somehow that will then transfer to the cup when I brew? That's a little bit of a concern, but okay. So that's fully integrated. It's a high flow basket that goes all the way down without angles. Okay. The holes are precise and go all the way. Okay. There we go. All the way to the borders. Well, it looks like it doesn't go. I guess it goes. I mean, I don't know if that's much different as far as border size, to the edges of the border, then I don't know if that's much different than whatever basket this may be, right? Braxton says that I have a Normcore portafilter that the bottom spots can pop off and on and off. Oh, spouts can pop. Oh, nice. That, you mean kind of like this one, right? Like the La Marzocco one, right? Where it just kind of has this gasket and pops off and on. I like this. I do like this. When La Marzocco came out with this a few years ago, I was super stoked. I just called them up. I was like, send me a bunch of these. I'm switching all of our portafilters out because we were using nakeds, right? So we would use let's say 2 regular spouts and then 1 naked on a 3-group machine. And I think the nakeds are awesome for bigger drinks, like 16-ounce iced lattes, right? So the 16-ounce iced latte cup will slide right under here. But if I had the spout on it, it would be a problem. And when we make our iced lattes, it would be full. It would be almost fully prepared by the time that we pull the shot into it. So it's a little bit of a different process. But I do, if that's the case, I do like that feature a lot, like so much. Anton says, damn, there's no such thing as tamping too hard. Puck cracking can happen, but not during extraction. It happens if you have bad habits or mistakes during puck prep, like polishing while applying. I don't understand when this, if you guys can make a video about this puck cracking happening, I would be very interested to see this because I just don't know along what stage or process of making espresso that you can cause the puck to crack. I just don't know. I just don't understand. I don't know how that can come from. While applying too much pressure or locking the portafilter against the machine after tamping. I mean, you fill the portafilter or you fill the basket and you lock it in. Let's say you overfill it. Even the times when we've overfilled it, and I mean we're jamming as much coffee as will fit in the basket as we possibly can, and we can barely lock the portafilter in. I mean, it's compression at this point. How that's cracking, I don't know. Anton says it can deseat the puck. Really? In other words, if you crack your puck, you really messed up. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever even seen that. I've seen it crack after I've knocked it and it's broken in half because it wasn't as compacted, so it didn't have the structure to stay together. I've seen that plenty of times. Anton says, if you have a critical wife and get the unifilter, you will soon find yourself swapping the single baskets. Coffee says, I back Meticulous. I hope it comes. And I would like to see, actually, I really liked the Meticulous, but I think they're facing lawsuits from a company called Duval Espresso because Duval evidently is a company that has shown their machine at the SCA Expo for a few years. They've never released it. And so a lot of people speculate that they are just one of those lawsuit frivolous kind of patent things. They have some kind of patents on their machine. So anything that, and I think their machine is also supposed to approximate the mechanical operation of a lever machine. So anything that could do something remotely similar, they want to hit them with litigation and try to get money out of it. So I don't know if Meticulous has the kind of backing to withstand a long legal battle. I think Duval has a lot of money where Meticulous probably doesn't have as much money. So again, America, capitalism, it's all about, being able to defend your litigation. But I do like their machine. Busa Busa says Barista Boot Camp. Oh. And then to Anton, tamping too hard is impossible. It's been thoroughly proven. Okay. Anton says, you can't see in the pic, but the border size is quite different. I got the 3D model saved in my head. Okay. And Omnio says, I've never heard of that either. And I gotta say, I've not heard of anything like that. Like that, this is really new to me. But I don't know. I'm skeptical of this. Perhaps there's something about maybe they're why don't do they show the interior of the basket? See, looks like the bottom. Why can't I zoom in on this part? Why are you not allowing me to zoom in? Maybe somebody has I'm sure somebody on YouTube has a video about this that I will have to look up. But I honestly, perhaps there's something about the geometry of the walls and the way it comes together that could be a change. But that's it. Like, and I get, okay, so if Anton's saying like it's all machined out of one piece of stainless, right? So the basket bottom is one piece, everything's all unified. Okay, I can see how that would cost $420 because it's a lot of money. Machining stuff like that, very precision, and then now you have to punch holes in it. Like, that's difficult. Now I wonder, like, okay, so they increase the wall thickness size by 1.2 millimeters from whatever, let's say these two, maybe like this actually looks thinner than this one. But, you know, over time, these will flex, right? And they will flex and they will sort of wear out. Like people say they wear out and they replace them. I've never really seen them wear out that much. But of course, I've got so many that are floating around that we interchange them quite regularly. I don't really know. But the if this is all unified, so let's presume that these will wear out and you do need to replace them, which they do. You would need to increase the wall thickness size by a significant amount. And 1.2 millimeters, I mean, this is probably only like a millimeter. I mean, no, it's less than a millimeter, right? So we're talking a tremendous increase in size because you can't, if it's all machined, I mean, you probably need to do that because you'll never replace it. So it needs to have some kind of, you know, oomph to withstand it, especially for $420. All right, so maybe in that respect, I get the price. Is that necessary? Will that improve your skills? Will that improve your espresso? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe if whoever wants to send me one, I'll play with it and let you know. But I think that these kind of 1.2 millimeter thickness, additional thickness with maybe a different hole pattern. I don't know if the average home enthusiast is going to see a significant improvement for that alone. For $420, right? That's more expensive than a Festool grinder, Festool sander, right? But if you're but I'm going to guess, like, you know, a lot of this is also enjoyment. So if you enjoy the aesthetics of this portafilter, like that portafilter, that extra portafilter for the meticulous, God, I think that's sexy. Like, I want to buy one. For $200, I don't really want to buy it, but I'm like, oh, I would. If I bought the meticulous, maybe I would spring for the. I'd probably spring for it because it just feels naked without. Like it would be incomplete without it. So, you know, if that's if you see it and you're like, oh, that Weber is just sexy, I must have it. Then have it. But will it truly translate into like more amazing espresso? I don't know. Like, I think you probably, in order to get to really see that level of improvement, I think your skills have to be pretty well honed. I think. I don't mean to dissuade you. Alex says that Weber Works stuff is good, but overpriced. I think Normcore has a unifilter portafilter. What is this Normcore? Oh, Normcore is that one that does that's the Chinese company, right? That does Normcore unifilter. I spelled that wrong. This is what we're talking about? Why do they have three? Oh, this is a different size. No, thank you. 54 millimeter. Oh, this is the 54 millimeter Fitzbreville seat. Okay, so 54 millimeter. Okay, so this is essentially the same. This is more or less, well, this is just a bottomless portafilter, right? So this is a bottomless that basically is very similar to having one of these and cutting it off, and then so it's a little bit of a different beast than, let's say, what evidently the Weber is. But also, let's have a look here, right? Let's have a look here. Like, here's the Normcore. Serviceable. This is sexier. This is what you're paying for, the sex, right? Sex is expensive, right? And if sex is cheap, then it's not good sex, right? So sexiness is expensive. $66 for this thing versus $420 for this, and this has the teak handle, right? So that's a little more sexy. Like, so you've gotta. If you want to get it done, the Normcore. But if you want sexiness, then maybe the Weber. I can't believe I'm recommending. I can't believe that sounds like a recommendation, because I think that the benefits for most people is going to be questionable for the Weber, right? Like, will you see a true benefit for your $420? I mean, $420. You could buy a grinder for that much. You could buy a third of this espresso machine. Like, you could be well on your way to new espresso machine for $420. Or you could buy yourself a dust separator from Festool for $420. End user says, too sexy for your portafilter. What's up, Diamond? Good to see you. Good to see you. It is too sexy for me. It's too sexy. Alex says that still need to a regular portafilter to backflush. So you need a regular portafilter. No, actually you don't. You can take the. Oh gosh, all this stuff, and I can't find what I'm looking for. It's terrible. Now I don't know where it went. Oh, here it is. So let's say that this was a naked portafilter, right? You don't necessarily need a regular portafilter. Oh, you mean for the Weber? Yeah, the Weber you still do, but ostensibly you're buying the Weber as an add-on, so you'd already have a portafilter that has the blank in it. So I hear what you're saying. I now understand what you're saying. I will not continue on with talking about that. Anton says they actually got a kind of a backflush spring. Maybe their most reasonable price. Or I guess you could always put those little in that basket. They have they usually have these silicone pads you could put in there. I think that kind of acts as the same thing, right? Busa says, I guess it would make a difference as a total sum of all your higher end equipment working together to extract that last 3%. But is it worth it? Is the question only you can answer. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great and true, very factually true statement, that it's really up. It's like the beauty is to the eye of the beholder, like only you can decide what is worth it to you, right? As far as whether or not that's worth it. I mean, I know a lot of people, like my friends, they're all like, they like, one of them, I think he makes fun of you because he's jealous, right? Because he doesn't have Festool, but he's all like, well, we need to have an intervention with you for your Festool. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we do, but he's stuck in, and I'm not against DeWalt because I've got tons of DeWalt, but it's different. It's a very different experience, and only you can decide that. And once you do, it could be very nice. Like, this is a nice portafilter compared to this one. And these are both La Marzocco's. This is a little bit heavier. This is a little bit lighter. So, evolution happens, and sometimes you want to upgrade and make nicer changes. Alex says, great. I would hope you could backflush with the unifilter. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I imagine they probably have thought about some way to do that. But I wish they wouldn't go through all these superlatives. Like, I don't know. Does that make a difference? Like, unprecedented extraction geometry. What? Improved thermal stability. Huh? A giant leap for espresso. Okay, perhaps the Weber 1, WB1, that grinder was a leap for, maybe I don't know, a giant, but a good leap in espresso technology. Like, I've used that one. That is a hellacious grinder. Like, I'm like, ooh, that is nice. My friend has one. I was like, I like using this. But the basket? Come on, man. I'd have to try it. I guess I have to try it. But I'm also cheap enough that I'm like, I don't know if I'd spend $420 for that. I could buy Festool for $420. That's right now much more important in my world. Alex says, have you seen the stone grinder from Weber? Yeah. That came out, I think, last year or this past year on April 1st. But I had been thinking about those. Those are grinders that are used, and they're priced, of course, at there. Weber's going to put a ridiculous price. It was totally ridiculous. But you can buy those. You can buy those grinders online. Like they use them for all kinds, for milling flour, for milling corn or rice. Very popular in Asia. So you get the big stone. Like I thought about getting one, from like ordering one from like Temu or something like that, but. God knows how much apparatus do you really need at home? Like I've got too much already. Just in my kitchen is ridiculous, right? Like on Thanksgiving, I was looking up how to prepare the turkey, right? Like because I got this turkey from Wegmans like kind of late, like Thanksgiving is Thursday. We picked up this turkey on Tuesday, and they were like, "It's a fresh turkey," but the turkey was frozen. Like it was frozen. It was rock hard. I was like, "This is a rock hard turkey," and it's 20 pounds. And there's not enough time to thaw it for 4 days in the refrigerator for Thanksgiving, right? So I was like, "How am I going to do this? Should I water bath it or something?" And the best thing though, here's a tip for you though. If you go to Wegmans or like maybe other grocery store like this. 2 days before Thanksgiving, man, this turkey, which would have been like $50, cost like less than $20 because they needed to get rid of them. They were like, "We need to get rid of these, so we're going to put them on super discount." So I was like, okay, so that's pretty good. Now, so I'm reading these forums about ideas on how to thaw the turkey, and one guy is like, "You could do a water bath, but not all of us have like temperature stable water bath controllers in our basement." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I do." This is how much ridiculous equipment that I have, in my house. Just this Polyscience thermobath controller, and it's not just the controller that you use for like sous vide style cooking. I do have that, but this is actually like a controlled water bath controller that is self-contained, that has a small bath in it, but it will also pipe out to a larger bath. And not only does it heat, it will also chill. So I could chill stuff. I was like, that's all, this epic. Anyway, but the point is that it just underscores that I don't need more gear. Like I don't want more gear. Like the stone grinder. Busa says, "I'm Team Red, Milwaukee, excellent." My brother's Milwaukee. He's a big deep Milwaukee guy. He left DeWalt many, many years ago, became Milwaukee. And yes, Alex, it was April Fool's. Yeah. Although I think it would be kind of interesting to try that kind of grinder. And they should do a fairly good job, at least. Maybe even for espresso. Maybe worth a try one day. One day. All right. Wow. Okay, now we've talked a lot. I hope this gives some insight into espresso. Maybe ways to make it different ways to approach it, maybe make it simpler, hopefully. If not, let me know if you have questions about espresso or like things were not clear. We can go through it again. We have plenty of live streams to go. We're almost at the end of the year. So yeah, there it is. Yeah, tomorrow's the last day of the year, right? Is that right? Tomorrow or Wednesday? Oh no, tomorrow. Tomorrow's the 31st, right? Yeah, okay. All right, well, for the penultimate day and the penultimate coffee Q&A of 2024. Good to see all of you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Be back again tomorrow with more coffee Q&A. So hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.